is record this meeting because I keep forgetting that. All right, so you know me, you know Tim. Who goes next?
Well, my name is Carlos Cardona. I am an international business student. I grew up in California, and I currently live in California. I'm graduating this year. Also, I participated with X Culture for a couple of years, and I believe it's a very good project. There's a lot of opportunities, and especially you get to improve your skills, whether speaking or interacting with other students around the world. You get to have more of knowledge about cultures and the business internationally.
And Carlos, what school you are at this time?
Right now, I'm still in Laverne.
Yeah,
I'm still going to the University of Laverne.
So that's Douglas Chan. Chan is the professor who taught there, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And you are master's or undergraduate at this time?
This time, I had some difficulties with my degree, so I'm still undergraduate, but I plan to go for a master's degree as soon as possible.
Got it. Okay. Very nice to meet you, and say hello to Douglas when you see him.
Yeah, right. I will.
Who goes next? Oh, come on. Don't be shy, guys.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. My name is Felicio Nelson. I am actually from Jamaica. And it's amazing that I'm here again.
So you are in Jamaica now as well, or you are just from Jamaica?
Yes, I am in Jamaica and I am from Jamaica.
Okay. All right. And so what's your employment status at this time? Are you still a student, an employee?
I'm both, actually. Yes.
All right. Okay. And you participated as a coach. It's been what, last semester, longer ago?
Yes, I was a coach last semester. Yes.
Very nice. Very nice. Nice to see you, Felicia.
Thank you.
Who's next? Oh, come on, guys. Sushant,
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, you've been around long enough to be not to be shy, to be not shy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from India, I'll say. I'm Sushant Singhal. I have been associated with X Culture for the last 6 years. I participated in X Culture, I guess, 6 times. When I was coached twice, I was in the award committee. I was regional executive director. I don't know what all I was. So
in every possible position, including X Culture Kids and coaching. Yeah. Sushant, have you attended any of the symposia? I cannot recall.
No, sir. Actually, there was a slight as to funds and all.
Yeah, we need to fix that problem. Hopefully, we'll see you in Canada this year, because I've known you like literally for 6 years or so and never really had a chance to meet. So.
Yes, sir.
All right. Karina, would you like?
Hello, my name is Karina. I'm from Brazil. Nice to meet you all. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration from University of São Paulo, and I'm working for I think the last 3 years. I'm now working with risk management and compliance.
Yep.
I've been in touch with X Culture, I think, since 2015.
And I think,
sorry.
Yeah, and I think, Karina, you even got the best coach award at some time in some year, didn't you?
Yeah, in Miami.
Yeah, I think you were rated as the best. I remember some sort of an award. Yeah. And so what's your status now? So you're not a student anymore, are you? Or you're still?
No. I'm planning to do my master next year, but right now I'm just working.
Okay. Very nice to see you again. All right. So who wants to go next? Lots of familiar faces. Maria, Jessica, Jake, anyone? Come on, guys. Let's pick on Jessica. Jessica has been with us also for a long time, on and off. And I think your microphone is muted, so that hopefully will.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's done. Right. Hi, everyone. I see familiar faces too.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jessica. I'm from Colombia. I'm 26 years old and a professional in international business. I started to work in sculptures 2015 when I was in South Korea for an exchange student. Well, what else? I don't know. I have been in so many symposiums in Savannah, in Tampa, and the last one was in Italy, and it was really, really amazing.
Right.
I really love it, and you know what else?
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jessica. Over these years, obviously, again, like others, you've done so much for us. So we should start thinking about ways to reward you back. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
All right. Who goes next? Anyone? Oh, don't be shy. Just unmute your microphone and go ahead.
Can I go next?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Maria.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I think I also see like a couple of familiar faces here. Basically, I joined X Culture in 2014, and when I was still a student in China, and then I was a coach like 2 years ago, and I also joined the Miami Symposium. And this year, I think I will join as the head coach for the second semester this year, because currently it's a very busy audit season for me, because currently I'm working as an auditor in Indonesia. Oh yeah, I'm from Indonesia, by the way. Nice to see you all. Looking forward to work together.
What country are you in at this time? Are you still in Indonesia or?
Yeah, currently I'm still in Indonesia, working.
Okay. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Who else do we have here? Please don't be shy, guys.
Hello, hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. My name is Tong Chong Wei. I'm from Malaysia, and 23 years old. And right now, I'm an undergraduate student, major international business. And I took part in X Culture since 2 years ago. And nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you. And so, are you still a student, or you have a job now, or what's your?
Still student. I'm still student.
Okay. Very nice. All right. Who's next? Trying to see the best way to position my camera. All right, that's probably going to work best.
I can go next. Hello to all.
Yeah.
My name is Lerta. I can't actually, because I'm walking right now, I can put my camera off. Sorry. So that's
we've met you many times. At least many of us have met you many times.
So. And I'm seeing Tim here and Jessica and also Felice that actually has been part of this semester. But for other one, it's nice to meet you. And I'm very happy to be again as a head coach for X Culture. It's very honor for me. And I can mention that it was one of the best experiences in my life to be part of X Culture. I mean, it's amazing. I am part of X Culture since 2017. And I will give my contribution till not limits, because I would like to be part of this international big family, and I really, really enjoy it. So I am from Kosovo. I am 24 years old. And currently I'm in Washington, D.C. because I am a dual degree studying that is in Switzerland and in Washington. But now I'm in Washington, and I will stay here until March. And then I will go again to Switzerland or UK. I'm not sure yet. So it's university have to deal with this one. And I'm a student. I don't find yet job because I wanted to finish my education. So, but of course, if something that suits me better, I don't know, like a good job position, that will be nice. And I'm hoping to see you guys in Canada. That will be very nice again to meet Jessica and Tim, and also Felice and other ones here. That will be very nice. I have a feeling that I'm doing a Macerata Symposium conversation because I see like Tim and Jessica here, but it's very, very nice being here. And yeah, that's me. I'm very happy to work with you, and of course to give a good contribution and being friends for the future. Why not?
So Blerta, your geography sort of. So you're from Kosovo.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Technically study in Switzerland now, but you are physically at this very moment you're across the street from me in Washington D.C., right?
I don't know where are you, but I guess yeah. Okay.
So, and how long are you in D.C. for?
I guess it's only for 10 days.
So because
like,
my next question would have been, so when are you planning to visit me? I mean, it's just...
Oh, that would be nice. Okay.
Well, so if you're only like literally just a few hours away, and there is an overnight train that goes directly from DC downtown directly to my downtown. So maybe, I don't know, maybe like next weekend or something if you have time. So
okay.
think about that.
All
so,
right. Okay.
But then worry at some point, it was you who went to Oxford, right? Or who was going to Oxford from?
Yeah.
That was you, right?
It's me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's me.
So, but you're done with that already, or you?
No, it's not done. It's like you continue education, but it's not that you're full-time like over there. You have just like from the September of this year, I will be full there, living there, like in complete 100% there. Because this year I have to do this dual because I was a scholarship.
Right.
I received like 100% scholarship to do this dual degree. And I thought that, why? I mean, come on, no one can say no this offer. So I thought,
Right.
yeah, I can do this. I can kill my brain for 1 year too, and I will continue doing what else I wanted. So yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So tracing your movement, one can study geography, you know. So, all right. Well, very nice to see you. And again, so let's communicate. So if you still have 10 days, I'm not sure how doable it is, but if you stay here longer, so maybe you can visit us in North Carolina sometime, if only for a day or a weekend or something. So let us know.
I will try to do that because I will be here until March, by the end of the month.
So you're here until March?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, yeah, maybe spring break or something. So we can think of something here.
Okay.
It would be very nice.
will-
So yeah, think about that. And as I said, if you have a time, time
Of
sometime.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually
Thank
will
you.
be in DC in a few weeks for a presentation, so maybe we can also meet there. So for the
All right.
University District of Columbia, so they want me to speak there. So let's
That's
coordinate.
nice.
All right.
Okay.
Well, sorry for the detour. Who else do we have here? Jake, you are in North Carolina, aren't you?
Me?
Yes.
No, I'm actually in Washington.
In Washington State. Okay. So for some reason.
Yeah, Washington State. Yeah, no, I'm the same
Okay,
state
so
as
that's
Kim.
as far from North Carolina as it gets on this continent.
I just actually got back from Las Vegas last week, actually.
Did you win anything?
No, but I went and saw Billy Idol.
I thought maybe.
So anyway, so
Yeah, you got a few jackpots and now in a position to sponsor X-Culture.
something like that. We'll coordinate.
Yeah, all right.
So
Okay.
as I just told everybody, I'm actually from Washington State, Spokane specifically. If anybody knows who Kim Nesper is, her and I actually are in the same town, roughly. I am a former, obviously, participant of the program, and then I was a coach for a couple semesters. Last semester, I was a head coach, and here I am back again. Currently working, I actually just got promoted to a level 3 position this week, and I'm a half-time student at Whitworth University as an MBA student. So I'm
what is
kept
the
pretty
level 3? Is that like a rank, or like what exactly does it mean?
Yeah, so it's a rank. I've had so many people ask me what it means, and I really don't know yet.
Okay.
I just know that my title, instead of I was a 1 2 years ago, and now I'm all the way up to a level 3, so I have more responsibility and expectation at this point.
Well, that sounds much more impressive than level 2. So
Yeah, it is. Yes, among my peers, there's only a certain amount of level 3s, so I'm in the many, the few, the proud.
all right. Okay. Well, nice to you. And one thing that I want to say about Jake, in case others might be interested too, we got a little grant, a few $1,000s to write the X-Culture handbook or textbook. And so it will have chapters on global virtual teams, chapters on international business. So basically it will be like one-stop source of information for professors and students, both in X-Culture, but also people in general who might be interested in global virtual collaboration. And it will be published, with all the, ISBN number and everything else, but we want to publish it as an open source, meaning that people will have the right to extract parts of it and use only parts if they want. So if a professor doesn't want to assign the whole book to the class, they can literally just assemble whichever way they want the chapters and maybe even add something else to it. And so Jake is actually one of the co-authors here. So he's working on a chapter there, and it's not too late for others to join if you want to. So I'll send you the link a little later. But if you see either a chapter where you can contribute, or maybe you can think of another topic that you think should be included there, you're welcome to join us, especially those of you who are aiming at a career either in academia or maybe in a kind of corporate sector, but where some sort of published work might be a benefit, or might be like some sort of a status thing. So it may be an opportunity for you to get your name on one of those publications. And so initially we thought that it would be an author per chapter, and authors will work independently. Now we're looking at it more as a collaborative work, And so people will be sort of helping as opposed to writing separate chapters, which means that even if you're not comfortable writing a chapter on your own, it's not a problem, because we can always find ways to redistribute the workload so that you can maybe look more at gathering ideas, whereas maybe a more experienced writer will actually write it up. So things like that. So in this case, obviously it takes years to be able to write a piece of work, but you may already be ready to help with, as I said, maybe a literature review, maybe search for data, maybe some ideas, and then we can outsource the actual writing to someone who has more experience, so that you don't have to do it all by yourself. So if any of you are interested, you can talk to Jake about that, but as I said, I'll send you more information in case you want to join that effort.
Hey, Voss, before we go any, I have one quick question about that really fast. Is it being physically produced?
Well, we will publish some copies, but since the distribution will be global, these days it doesn't make sense to have paper copies. We'll definitely publish some, and we'll make them available as well. But it's much easier to sell it in electronic format, either through Amazon. I think Amazon will be definitely on the list, but also simply, for download. Like, for example, one of the things that we're still debating is, should we charge for it when it comes to the Xculture participants? And at this time, it seems like the consensus is we want to actually offer it for free to Xculture participants, not only because it would be, benefit everyone when students come more prepared, but also collecting the payments may be a nightmare. Whatever the money is, more likely than not, some countries will simply not be able to pay. Like here in the United States, a credit card swipe and you buy it. In other countries, it may not be a popular form of payment, so it may be very difficult. Second, replicating books these days is very easy, especially if they're electronic. And so it again makes no sense to demand some payment when a person can just buy it and then the whole class can just get a copy. So therefore, we're still trying to decide what's the best way to manage it. But yes, if needed, it will be also available in paper format and then electronically on top of that. So we'll work on that. So
I was just curious because I want to add to my collection here.
Yes, so yeah, I'm sure we'll make it possible to print, not to print out, but order a hard copy. So as long as you're willing to pay. So, and that collection, that's your books or just books?
Yeah, so I actually just had to buy another bookshelf. So this was originally my collection, but it's expanded into another one.
When you say your collection, that's books that you wrote?
They're somewhere in the bottom. I've written 4.
Oh, that's impressive. That's impressive.
Yeah.
I also have a collection there, if you see, and so the top shelf are books that I wrote, but the rest is somebody else's. So but that's, journal articles and some my dissertation I see there, and a couple of books that I edited. So, but it seems like you have even more there on your shelf. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So we have also Gigasa, if I pronounce it correctly, and who else do we have left? And Carlo, right? Carlo, are you actually in New York, or you're just the T-shirt New York?
Hi everyone. No, I'm actually I felt sick from New York, so I just put this sweater on to feel like I was there. But I'm so. Hi everyone. I'm Tim. Hi Jake. He was being my head coach the last semester. I'm 25. I'm working as a store manager, but I'm applying for a master's degree now. And I should graduate bachelor's degree by next month, maybe 2 months, depending on because in my university. And I joined Xculture in January 2018. And so that's
very nice. Okay, very, very nice. Nice to meet you, Carlo. And do we have anyone else? Is it Gigasa or Gigasa? How do you pronounce it correctly? We don't hear you, and I see you have the headset, so I suspect that you need to go to the audio settings and select the headset, because by default it may be choosing some different source of audio. Like in my case, I have like 5 different sources.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Jigyasa, and I'm from India. And I got introduced to Xculture when I was doing my PGDM International Business from BIMTech in Greater Noida. So that was, I think, in 2015, the second half. And during the August to December 2016 part, I joined Xculture as a coach as well. And this time I'm joining in the capacity of a head coach. And I've been working with a software company for the past 3 years, and I work in the market research department of that company.
Very nice. We actually can use your skills maybe. So, oh, but you're doing market research, right? So you don't write code, you do the managerial business kind of research type of stuff, right?
Yeah, mostly from the client side and the business angle, that what are the trends upcoming in the market, and mostly we work in the banking and financial services industry, that what are the upcoming trends, what all technologies are they using, stuff like that. Not from the coding side, but mostly from the client side perspective.
Right, right. That makes perfect sense. All right. Well, nice to meet you all. I spoke with Kim a minute ago on the phone, so she's somewhere out of town and cannot connect with us, but we will share the recording with her. So let me say a few words about the challenges and tasks before us. And before I do, I would like to kind of stress one thing. So again, now you are not only head coaches, but you are, colleagues and partners and coworkers. And so those of you, all of you have participated in the coaching program, you probably have noticed that some things have been moving maybe not as smoothly and not as fast as we want them to move. So the workflow, we've been refining it semester after semester, but obviously, as in any organizations, there are always ways to improve the workflow further. And so some things that we've done worked fine, well, some could have been done better, and some maybe we didn't even think about. And so one important task for you guys, or opportunity, whichever way you want to look at it, if you see anything that either is not working or can be improved, please either tell us, or better yet, step in and try to improve it. So I will be explaining in the next few minutes, how we plan to run it this semester. But if you see anything that either doesn't make sense to you, or you simply know how to do it better, or maybe something that we didn't even think about, didn't notice, your one of the responsibilities in a sense is to manage it. So if you see ways to streamline the process, or maybe add a feature, or maybe handle something better, please don't be shy. Let us know. Take the responsibility, and at the very least let us know, and we'll try to fix it, but maybe even take charge and so sort of kind of volunteer to manage it. So anything from processing the cases to dealing with the feedback for the coaches, to the portfolios that the coaches will be organizing, data management, all of those obviously can still be improved. So let me give you some statistics first, and then the way we see the flow for this semester. But as I said, I am very open to the idea of improving it, and so I'm sure you will have some good ideas here. So we just looked at some numbers with Tim literally a few minutes ago, had a Skype meeting. And so at this time, we have a total of about 97 applicants to the coaching program, and we have about 25 applicants to the head coach program. And we compared those numbers to the numbers last semester and semesters. They're roughly the same, so the proportions, the totals are roughly the same, plus or minus. So the people who were invited to the coaching program and the people who were invited to the head coaching program were people who showed good results at the previous level. So for example, for the coaching program, we sent out the invitations to the students that scored in roughly top 25% on peer evaluations and other performance indicators. But then once we sent out the invitations, the acceptance was not quite automatic, so we still looked at the quality of the applications. Like there were some that were either incomplete, or when the question was, explain why you should be in the program, it said just simply because I'm an awesome guy. Well, that doesn't sound, serious. So a few people like that were excluded or not invited to join. But everybody else, they showed good performance. The application was strong, so we accepted them. Same thing with you head coaches. As you probably know, at the end of the semester, you're all being evaluated and ranked by the directors, Kim and Tim last semester. And so again, not everyone got positive reviews. So there were some coaches who got relatively negative performance evaluations. Obviously, we didn't invite them. But as long as you did a good job, so you got an invitation. And so those of you here are sort of, first, you had to get into a good university, so you already were better than most. Then you had to get through X-Culture, so that's, again, not everyone does it. Then through the coaching program, and now the head coach level. And some of you even did this before, so obviously it's a very select group. And one of the reasons I wanted you to introduce to each other is because, again, people here may not be only people in the same program, but also people who may be your future, colleagues and coworkers and partners, and just simply friends. And so it's important, at least to me, that you develop not only those skills, that go around coaching and managing, but also professional network. So looking at the numbers then, in the past, we would normally lose about 70% of the applicants in the 4 weeks of training. So we would have about 100 plus or minus applications from the pool that we invited. But then when the time to comes to actually do something, many people drop out. And in most cases, it's not because they're not capable, mentally and intellectually. It's more either lack of diligence in general or demands in life elsewhere. So obviously, we're not offering any, serious compensation or anything like that. So it has, to come with some sort of self-discipline and motivation. And apparently not people have that. Again, I don't want to say that people are slackers or not serious. I mean, people have jobs and school and maybe, I don't know, some personal issues, boyfriend, girlfriend, family, kids. And obviously not everyone can, sustainably or sustain the level of involvement week after week after week. So same thing here. So I expect that we will probably lose most of the applicants in the next 4 weeks. About half of them will simply stop participating, stop doing the weekly theory tests. And then there will be probably some who will do it, but the quality will not be quite there. So they will not prepare, and then they will start answering the questions more or less randomly. And even though we will get the answers, they will not show the level of preparation and dedication that we expect. So, which is, again, perfectly fine, no problem with that. Ideally, we want to end up with about 30 or so coaches, maybe even 25, because more will be on the one hard to manage. On the other hand, we don't really need that many. With the number of teams we have, with the number of requests for help, with the number of clients, 20, 25 will be perfectly sufficient. It will give us enough people per coach, per student, enough, or per 100 students, or whichever way we want to count, per company. So I think it will be perfectly sufficient. Also, I'm very worried about accepting more people, including those who are not necessarily very ready, because the dynamics may be very damaged by people who are not pulling their weight. And so it's better to have a smaller team where everybody is working, in unison and actively, and so creates this positive dynamics of, effort, respect, mutual benefit, from communication with one another, as opposed to have more people where some are not working. But even though it's a minority, everybody else looks at them and thinks, well, if he's not pulling his weight, why should I? And then before you know it, the whole system collapses. So we can afford to be a little bit more selective while we have so many applicants. And let's see how many. I don't want to put a number on it, but I'm kind of expecting that about, I don't know, out of 100 or so, probably about 70 will drop out naturally, or 50, and maybe we'll lose another 10, 20 just because the performance quality will not be quite that same. Another thing that I'm not sure about in terms of the payments, so we would like to raise some money, and we use that money on two main expenditures. One, travel stipends for coaches to come to the symposium for the ambassadors, and two, some of you will be doing a lot of work, like for example, Tim and Kim will be helping administratively, investing a lot of time. And so even though we cannot offer them market, kind of competitive compensation, but I would like to offer at least some sort of a honorarium, at least, a little bit, so that they have, take a girlfriend out for dinner or something like that. And so in the past, we would expect the payments from the coaches before the program starts. But what happens in those cases is, some people do not pass the theory test, but already have paid. And then ethically, even though they often do not demand the refund, ethically, I don't feel comfortable taking money from students who are not even going through the program. And even though it's only like $75 or something like that, or $275 for others, it's quite painful to issue the refund. In many cases, depending on the country, it's just not as simple as clicking somewhere. In many cases, you have to do this bank wire transfer. And with some countries, it literally, it takes more time and effort to make the payment then it costs essentially my time. So therefore, this time we changed the system a little bit, and so people apply now, but only after they pass the theory test and before they advance to the practical phase, they will be asked to pay. And so I'm not sure how many we will lose at that stage. So I suppose many people will think, oh, it's so much work, maybe I shouldn't participate. So we'll see. But then there will be also some people who participate for free from developing countries or some other reasons. So we are liberal with that stuff. So we'll see how it goes. And with you head coaches, obviously, normally we should be paying you. And I don't have enough budget yet to offer a meaningful compensation for you guys. So hopefully it's an exchange where you help us, but you get something in exchange in the form of experience, recommendations, stronger resume. And my hope is that sometime in the future, we'll finally be able to raise enough money to offer some compensation to the head coaches. But for now, all I can say is that, for example, for Canada, we expect to have 20 ambassadors. I think they want to have 10 local and 10 invited. And so obviously when the time comes to select invited ambassadors, you will be first in line given your experience. And even though it will not be, again, a lot, but at least, we will be able to cover some of your expenses there. And hopefully that will be a way to sort of reward your participation. So we'll see how that goes, but hopefully that will work out well for everyone. So now in terms of the workflow, by the way, any questions or anything? Tim, do you want to add anything on the general numbers or expectations in terms of who participates, totals, numbers, and things like that?
I mean, you can finish your story, and then afterwards I will say a couple of things.
All right, so now let's talk about the workflow. There are several things that need to be sort of done. And so here again, both this is your experience, but also this is the work, areas where we need help. And that's also where the coaches are getting training. So there are several things coaches will be doing. So not head coaches, but regular coaches. And then your job will be to sort of help us manage it, oversee it, evaluate it, sort of manage the managers or coach the coaches. So coaches will be doing essentially 4 main things. 5 actually. So one, when students come and ask for help, the coaches will be providing that help. So most of the times the requests for help are a conflict in the team. Sometimes someone is missing. And so it's sort of a conflict, but it's a special case of a conflict. So sometimes it needs to be investigated, and not so much to figure out who's wrong and who's right, but more to see why the person is not participating and can anything be done about that. So can the person be helped and put back on team, or is it a case where we have to drop the person? And sometimes it would be more peculiar cases like, some strange situation with coordination or something else where the coaching help is needed. And so we get quite a few of those. So there would be several requests a day with requests for help. And so the coaches then will be assigned to those cases and provide help to the best of their abilities. And then you guys will sort of keep an eye on that, and as a result, provide them feedback on the situation resolution as done by the coach. And with the coaches, we ask them to, so the process that we have in place, and maybe we'll improve it if we see ways, but currently the process is the following. An email comes to coaching@xculture.org. We see that request for help. We assign usually 2 coaches, and again, we'll need to discuss, maybe we should assign even 3. I like the number 2 because 1 is not enough. The coach may not be available right away. 2, you have a backup, plus they will work in a pair as a team, so there is some element of team building or teamwork learning. And so hopefully this way it will be more enriching both for the coaches, but also better service for the team. So when they receive the assignment, we have a template, an email that goes to the coaches, 2 coaches plus the person who who requested help. And the message says something like this. So we see that you need help. These 2 coaches are assigned to your help. Here we provide the names of the other team members and their contacts. In most cases, it may be necessary to contact the rest of the team. So the coaches who get assigned the case, they have the contacts and can reach out to the rest of the team. And from that point on, the coaches basically proceed as they see fit. If needed, they talk to the other team members, collect more information. If it's something simpler and does not involve interpersonal relationship, they may talk only to that person. But the presumption is that the email will be answered within 24 hours with the context to the coaches and the person who contacted them. The coaches proceed, hopefully in a day or 2, resolve the situation, and then prepare a 1-page, as we call it, case report. So those are, again, for you, the head coaches, to review and then provide feedback on it, but also for the rest of the coaches to review kind of for quality and learning purposes. And then for the coaches who were assigned to the case, it would be basically a portfolio development. So hopefully by the end of the program, they have a few dozen of those in the portfolio, and then they can show those to the prospective employers and say, okay, I've dealt with the cases, and I had conflict resolution, I had missing case, coordination, feedback, and stuff like that. So the only thing that I'm not sure here is when the case is assigned, we may be open, given that we have quite a few head coaches. We may be also, it may be prudent to assign a head coach as well. You will not be required to take any action, but you will be copied on all the correspondence. And so this way, when you will be evaluating the case handling by the coaches, you sort of know everything from the beginning. So we have two coaches, John and Sarah, who are assigned to the case. You got a copy, so you know that it's going on, and your job is to sort of keep an eye on it. John and Sarah reach out to the team, ask what's going on, figure out that, yes, there is a case of bullying, somebody is being unreasonable. They communicate, resolve the case, write up the case report. You have seen all of that, or at least kept a track of all of that. And then in the end, you take a look at the whole picture and you provide some feedback to the coach. And you say, okay, John, Sarah, you did a good job. You contacted them, on time. You were professional, or maybe you were not. Maybe you could have done something differently. Here is my feedback and suggestions. And in many cases, it's not even that you're more experienced or smarter. It just, when someone from the side looks at the situation, in many cases, people see what others don't see. So just like if we ask a coach to provide some feedback on your work as a head coach, in many cases, they can come up with something useful. So that's how the plan, to handle it is. And the only thing that I want to add here is that we have another source of information about problems in teams, and that is weekly comments. So the plan is, again, to download every Monday the comments left by the team members. You've seen enough of those comments before, and you know that most of the teams don't really, or students don't really say much. Some don't say anything. Some just say everything's fine. Some say a sentence or two, but some actually write pages and pages of, describing the situation. And so the coaches will be asked to look at those comments, mainly to sort of know what's going on in the teams, develop this understanding and intuition of how teams, are developing. But occasionally in those comments, they will see sort of hidden calls for help, or maybe indications of problems. So maybe somebody is sharing in the comments that there is a problem. And so again, the way we want to handle those is basically the same as in the previous case. A coach is reading the comments, notices a problem. The only thing here is that instead of being automatically assigned the case, the coach will go to the director, say, hey, there is a comment from team 274 that they have a problem. Is anyone working on that? And if not, the person will be assigned to this case, and from that point on, same thing. So two coaches, one head coach maybe, and they just reach out with an email that reads, we were reading your comments. We noticed that there is a problem. Would you like some help? And so if they say sure, then we proceed as normal. If they say no, we are good, no worries, then we just drop it. And so other than that is the same procedure. So question I have for you, Tim, and everybody else, do you think that would be a viable model, or do you think there is a better way to do it, simplify or maybe make it more complicated? Does that sound, well, you don't have to answer the question per se, but if you think, or will think in the future, if you think there is a better way to do it, we can always change the process. One problem that we had in the past, and we spoke about that with Tim, is that sometimes we get a lot of those requests, and Tim, Kim, they're quite busy with other things in life, and unfortunately some of those requests were not answered right away. So sometimes it may be a day or two or three even before the director has the time to review all those emails and assign cases. And so in some cases, before a coach is assigned, the issue has been resolved. So we reach out to the student and they say, oh, we are fine, no need for help anymore. And so one of the ways I'm struggling, or one of the things I'm struggling with, is how do we make sure that each request for help is answered, if not immediately, then within like a day or so. And so one of the options could be that both Tim and Kim, because technically we want to separate the duties that they do so that each one is responsible for different things, but maybe we can do it that both people are responsible for this, and whoever's available, like they're in different time zones, maybe one is processing them during the night and the other one during the day. Or maybe we can even give access to that email account to some of the head coaches. And so, somebody kind of logs in the email account and processes those cases every few hours. Because the system we have in place is like a big Excel file. And so when the cases are assigned, we sort of see who's assigned the case, who's working on what. We know when to send the reminders. My only big worry here is that if we give access to this system to too many people, first, there may be a lot of confusion. So we may not keep track well of which case has been processed and which not. And second, we may have the case of diffusion of responsibility. With the expression, when the kid has too many nannies, the kid is unattended or something like that. So if everybody knows that there are several other people who may be helping here, then nobody takes it seriously enough, and then it's a bigger problem. So maybe from that perspective, it's better to have one person who is responsible for assigning cases. And so that person, if not available for a day, travel or something else, in that case, reaches out to someone else and appoints someone else, a head coach or the other director for that day or two when the person is away. But otherwise, it's still one person's responsibility. So that's where I'm not sure. So duplication may be good, redundancy may be good, but also maybe lead into diffusion of responsibility. Anyway, so, and then the only other thing that I wanted to say here is that while the coaches will be writing the case reports and you will be writing feedback, I'm not sure if there is a need to do like a case report on the case report. So probably that's too much paperwork. So if you do the feedback, it's probably enough for your portfolio. And so you can then accumulate the whole correspondence and the case report by the coaches plus your feedback so that you can show to your prospective employers that you've done all of that, but I don't think there is a need to do any report past that. So that's one. Next one, feedback. Similar to the case reports, but we need feedback from the coaches in several different forms. One, in many cases when the students come to us, they specifically ask for feedback. They would say, okay, here is the draft of my report. Can you please take a look and provide your feedback? And again, we will assign coaches to those just like we would if it was a conflict situation. And again, probably two, they will take a look, they will provide the feedback. The team will be happy. The coaches will not only, again, put something on the, in their portfolio, but also, evaluating work of others is a very educational exercise. I may have shared that before. One of the jobs for me as a professor is to publish papers, write books, articles, and things like that. And, for the first several years of your academic career, you write, you submit, somebody reviews your work, like anonymous reviewers, you get feedback, and it's either published or not. But then after you reach a certain level, then the journals reach out to you and ask you to be the reviewer, ask you to evaluate work of others, provide that feedback, and recommend if it should be published or not. It takes a lot of time, but it's a very, very, very educational exercise. I definitely believe that I learned much more by reviewing work of others than by writing on my own. So here, as I said, it's not paid for the professors, but it provides you with this opportunity to sort of critically think at work of others, similar work that you are doing yourself. And all of a sudden you start seeing, what makes sense, what doesn't, how the paper should be structured to, to be presentable. So it definitely makes you a better writer, even though what you're doing is evaluating the writing of others. Same thing here. So when the coaches are providing feedback on reports written by others, technically they're providing a service, but at the same time, they are sort of, developing a much better understanding for their own writing as to, how it should be structured, what turns off the reviewers, what makes a positive impression. So if you review work of others enough, you yourself become a much more effective writer, presenter. And so this way, when the time comes for you to write a report for your boss, or maybe prospective, venture capitalist, or maybe job application, all of a sudden you know much, much better, how to structure it. And so same thing here. So the coaches will be doing the evaluations. I'm not sure, again, if we need to assign head coaches to feedback, but I don't think why not. So, I think why not? Because again, for you, you will be evaluating feedback. So the team asks for feedback on the report. The coaches review and provide feedback, but then you critically evaluate feedback and you provide feedback on feedback. Again, a very good exercise. You will be managers very soon. You will have to evaluate work of others. You will have to provide feedback. And so by evaluating feedback provided by the coaches, you will develop an intuition for what's effective feedback, what depresses people or maybe discourages people, what is constructive and actually encourages them to do a better job, what is, professional, what is not professional, what is readable, not readable. So by having a quick look and then rating it, on some scale and maybe providing a few words, it will be a very good experience for you that you can use as a manager in your current or future job. Again, shouldn't take too much time to evaluate feedback, but I thought it would be a good exercise for you. And again, a service for the coaches who want to know how they did in terms of the feedback. Maybe some feedback they provide is excellent and maybe some is not. And so until you tell them, they wouldn't know. So it's important that we have that as well. So again, almost like cases, not a big difference. Now, a whole different block is training materials developed by the coaches. And we have here three things. We have a text-based training module, we have video lecture, and we have a live webinar. And as you probably understand, we don't really need all those materials provided by the coaches. I mean, students will not be able to go through all of those materials, because if we have, let's say, 20, 30 coaches, 40 maybe even, multiply that by 3 units provided by each coach, it's like over 100 and something, you know, units of training materials. And so no student will be able to go through all of that. But the reason we ask each coach to do it is because we want them to have that experience and to be able to put it on their resume. We want them to be able to say, I did develop a training module, and here is the copy. I did provide or organize a live webinar, and here is a recording, and I know how to use the software. I know how to structure it. I know how to manage this live meeting. I did provide or develop or recorded a video lecture. It's edited, but it looks professional. Here is a copy. So all of those obviously will look good on their resume and in their portfolios, but also occasionally some students do or coaches do a very good job. Again, you may have seen some, and we'll show you the copies of the submissions from the last semester. Some of them are, you know, just plain bad, you know, not something that I would be comfortable, you know, assigning to the students. Many are good, not necessarily super professional, but good enough to be shared. And some are really, really good. Like some webinars you guys did, like, whoa, I mean, like really, really good. In fact, some of them are even assigned to the students this semester. And so our hope is that on the one hand, the coaches gain experience, and even if we have to discard most of that material, at least they tried. And so when the time comes to apply for jobs, they will be a little bit better than other applicants. They may not be experts. They may not be, you know, super gurus in this area yet, but they've tried it and everybody else didn't. And so even though they're not here, but only, you know, here, but everybody is below them, so they will have a much better chance of getting a job just because they have that a little extra advantage. So, but that's where, again, you come in. So we want those coaches to get feedback. So if they develop a training module, we want someone to read and criticize it. And by criticize, I mean not just destroy it, but you know, critically look at it and say what's good, what's bad, what can be improved. Likewise, if they do a live webinar, we want somebody to be present there or look at the recording later on and comment. You know, you were talking too fast, as I know I am now. By the way, you should have raised your hand and said, "Vas, you're talking too fast." But I know that, and I cannot control it. But anyway. You may be, you know, structured it in a way that it was ambiguous and not clear what you were trying to say. It was too long, too short, not enough detail, or too many details. So somebody has to look at it and provide feedback. And likewise, as I said, by looking at the work of others and evaluating it, you will also develop a much better understanding how to do it better. So when the time comes for you to do a webinar or write a training module or record a video lecture, you will know much better what works, what doesn't. And so the problem here administratively in the past has been that we moved too slowly. In almost all previous semesters, by the time the coaches were producing their materials, it was almost too late for the students. So in many cases, the webinars were happening after the students were done with the report. And by that time, there was almost nobody in the audience because the students are already done and exhausted and they don't want to spend any more time, at least at that moment. So they're just not interested anymore. Likewise, training materials, again, we can use them in the next semester's round. But in many cases, by the time it's produced, it's too late for this semester. And so ideally, we want to have a system in place this semester where those materials are produced early enough to be usable this semester. Like, for example, it probably would make sense to start with a live webinar because it required the least preparation. So as long as we have a topic and we know what we want to say, we can go right away. And it's also nice preparation for the kind of more structured pre-recorded lecture or training module. Again, so you do the webinar, you kind of rehearse it, you see what the questions are, what the reactions are, then you do it again, but this time in front of a camera, and you record it and you cut it and you produce it into a video lecture. And then during this time, you are writing your script, you're writing your questions, you're writing your materials. And so you kind of start working on the paper. And then when you're done with the webinar and the lecture, that's when you kind of clean up the notes and you get your training module, text-based, paper-based training module. And so again, we'll have to coordinate with Tim and Kim in terms of the timing so that we have that done early on. Maybe we'll even ask the coaches to start thinking about their training modules and lectures and webinars while they're still in theoretical training. But also you head coaches obviously will be kind of assigned to oversee and manage this project. So let's say two coaches decided to do a webinar on plagiarism. So we may ask you then to sort of be, kind of older brother here or manager, check their notes, help them, prepare for the webinar, maybe even run some sort of a rehearsal before they do it in front of the audience, or maybe look at the recording of the rehearsal and then provide feedback. And then again, same thing. So they will produce something for the portfolio, but you will provide feedback and that will be your portfolio. And so here, as I said, for me, the main issue is timing. Second, somebody needs to provide feedback throughout the process, like they have a topic. So somebody has to look at it and say it's a good topic or bad topic. And it can be only, for example, the director, but it can be also the head coach and maybe even several head coaches. And so we can even have some sort of like an average score for the topic. Then they provide some sort of quick description or maybe outline. So let's say they want to do a webinar on plagiarism. And so it seems like a good topic, but then they list the topics or issues that they want to cover. And you see, nah, that's, too long, or maybe that's too simple, or maybe it's not even plagiarism here. And so you say, why don't you include this and this and this and maybe drop this? And so they say, oh yeah, that's useful. Then they maybe have like an extended outline and maybe some script for what they want to say. Again, you take a look and say, yeah, you know what, that's not the best way to present it. Why don't you take another look here? Or maybe, think about presenting it from this angle. So for you, it's a good experience of managing people. For them, it's, a better product in the end. And I guess once they've delivered their presentation or video lecture, again, you rate it, you say, okay, it's great or bad, and then provide some feedback. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on that? What's the best way to organize this portfolio, all those kind of three different things that they will be doing? Is what I described, does that make sense? Or is there a better way to do it, or we need to see and, go from there? What are your thoughts?
I feel that so far, everything that you have talked about makes sense to me. For criticism-wise, I feel that for the years that I was in the program, I feel like there wasn't a coach or somebody there when I participated as a participant. So I didn't receive as much feedback from them, but rather from my teacher. So what I would like to see this year is hopefully we can be more on top of our coaches so that they're able to provide feedback to everybody on a timely manner.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yes, I do recognize that same issue, and hopefully we'll do it better this time. So as far as the ideas, I think they always have been in place, but execution, that's where it becomes a problem and or challenge. And hopefully this semester we'll be able to provide better feedback at all levels, One question I have for you, and we've been on that back and forth with Tim and Kim in terms of the structure. I never liked the structure of when the coaches are assigned to head coaches on a permanent basis where, each head coach is responsible for, like, let's say 3 or 4 coaches. And the reason for that is that some coaches may need more help and maybe one head coach is not enough. 2, some head coaches are excellent and others may not be so excellent, different experience, different everything. And so then some coaches are lucky to have an excellent head coach and others are not. And then 3, again, maybe some coaches will just not need much help, or maybe they will drop out in the middle of the project. And so that head coach will not have many people to manage. So I sort of like the idea where it's also like a walk-in model. So where the head coaches or coaches are assigned to be supervised by the head coaches on a kind of as needed basis. Somebody comes and says, I want to do a webinar. We'll look at who's among the head coaches is available at that time and assign this person to oversee this project. So this way you get to work with more coaches because, different coaches may be assigned to you at different times. They get to work with more head coaches because, again, different head coaches may be assigned to them at different times. So there is more mixing and experience and idea exchange. But at the same time, that model becomes a little bit less logical and a little bit more chaotic. And so maybe administratively, it's not such a bad idea to have those kind of, rigid pyramid. And if we think it's a better idea, again, the question is, should it be then one head coach for each, let's say 3 coaches, or would it be, again, a pair of head coaches? Maybe you 2 are responsible for these 10 coaches, you 2 are responsible for those 10 coaches. So this way, again, we have some redundancy, we have some, more ideas, more exchange. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure what's the best way to manage it. So another way to distribute the workload would be by company. So since each company has a slightly different challenge, in many cases it makes sense to sort of, assign people to companies so that each time you see someone, provide feedback, it's always on, XYZ company. So this business, this, challenge, and you become more proficient in it. But then again, do you want to limit yourself to only one company? Maybe you want to look at a variety of challenges. So I'm not sure what the best way to do it is, and I kind of would like to hear your thoughts. So I don't know, on your experience, based on your experience, should it be like a walk-in as needed assignment, or should it be a rigid pyramid or something else? What do you think?
For me, in terms of the coaching and the assigning of a head coach to the coaches, my experience the last time was basically to have 3 or more coaches assigned to the head coach. In that way, for me, it was consistent, especially with everything else that was not so structured. But it would be good to have the experience also to have multiple coaches that you can access, so you can actually learn from more than one people. I'm not sure if we're ready for that today based on where we are in terms of how the program is organized and so on. But you and Tim and Kim, I suppose, would be best able to ascertain if that would be best. But for now, I feel like a structured situation where if you need the help, you go there, and you can always talk to the other coaches because they're also within the WhatsApp groups, etc.
Yeah. In organizational science, they call it a hierarchy versus matrix systems. So in the matrix systems, you sort of have coaches, head coaches, and you assign them as needed. Again, it allows you to allocate resources more efficiently, but the process of assigning is becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
And any other thoughts on this?
I also wanted to collaborate with, to agree with Carlos when he mentioned that, yes, the experience really was that there was limited feedback. So you kind of didn't know where you were as a coach. Right. But going forward, I think it's a brilliant idea because just like the student, the coaches need to know what they're doing wrong and right because they're also coaching students. So that's a good idea. And I'd love to see that manifested in this project for this semester. So yeah, that's the feedback to the coaches. I wanted to ask the question per se regarding when I was a student, we used to complete these online, you call them like you fill in stuff each week and report it into you.
Yeah. So the plan is, yes, that's a very good question. And yes, the plan is to have a very detailed weekly survey for the students, which we've had always. Then a little bit smaller progress surveys for the coaches, so they don't do much of that, but they still have to, we will ask them how they're doing. Are they happy with the head coach, with the director? Have they had any interesting situations with the students? And then I don't see why not ask for a quick survey, progress survey from the head coaches. In your case, it can be only like a couple of questions. But again, we want to provide you a vehicle on the one hand to inform us if there is a problem so that it comes in a standardized form and easy to spot. But at the same time, we need to be able to track what's going on. And so I think we will do that as well. As I said, we always I felt a little ambivalent here. On the one hand, I want to get information. On the other hand, I kind of feel guilty for asking you to do those surveys because it does take a little time. But I think it shouldn't be too much if it's only a few questions and takes like 5-10 minutes of your time. Hopefully it's not too much work for you and still a lot of useful information for us.
Yeah, but I think also we have those surveys to to do also for the culture, right? Like, I don't know, it was a couple of questions, and I have student in the semester that actually was asking me if you're going to have received or no. And I asked him as well, so.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. One more thing that I forgot to say, actually two, transition, when we talk about feedback, so we talked about feedback when students come to coaches and specifically ask for feedback. So we can't handle those as cases. 2, and here we never were able to do it right. And I'm not sure, I'm determined to try, to do it right this semester, but there are some challenges. And that is feedback on weekly deliverables. So in the perfect world, every time we plan to do something like this, on Monday, we download the data that includes weekly deliverables from Teams. So the students have to do something this week, let's say write the marketing section of their report, and so they submit it on Sunday, we download it Monday morning. And so ideally what we want to do is to distribute it to the coaches on Monday. The coaches will then spend several days providing feedback on that work and send it back to us, let's say Thursday. And then, or maybe, I don't know, by the end of the weekend. And then next time we send an email to the teams, we include feedback from coaches on their deliverables. So this way the students automatically get some feedback on their work and can use it to improve their work. The challenge here is that it takes time. And in many cases, by the time the coaches provide feedback, even if they work really fast, by the time they provide feedback, in many cases, it's too late. Especially if it's feedback on the last week, like the final chapter of the report. By the time we have feedback, they already submitted the reports. Second, and that one, so what to do with that, I don't know. So we can share the deliverables on Monday, but unless we have it by Wednesday when we send the next link, it's almost too late. I suppose we can give coaches a whole week to provide feedback and send it out next week, but in that case, we have a 10-day delay. And as I said, for chapter 1 and chapter 2, it may still be useful, but for chapter 3, it's already too late. Same thing when it comes to the final draft. By the time we submit, so the students would submit the final draft a week before the final deadline. And so if the coaches take a few days to provide feedback on the final drafts, by that time, they already submitted the final report. So there is no time to use that feedback. So there are several things we can do here. One, after trying for many years to provide feedback on each individual submission, I came to the conclusion, and tell me if you think otherwise, but I came to the conclusion that it's better to provide feedback on the cohort of submissions and not on the individual submissions. And the reason for that is this. If the coaches are asked to provide feedback on every submission, we have a lot of teams. It will be about 1,000 teams. And even if we have 50 coaches, that's a lot of submissions for each coach to process. And so coaches are busy people. And if you have to ask, provide feedback on 50 submissions, you end up only with a few words per submission. So you end up only with something like good work or great work or, I don't understand what you're trying to say. And that's the feedback. So this way, everybody sort of gets personal feedback, but it's useless because it's too shallow, too little. Instead, what I think a better feedback would be is a feedback on the kind of selection of submissions. So let's say each coach is assigned 50 submissions, or maybe even have the whole cohort, like entire set, and are asked to randomly select a few or kind of look through as many as they can. And then write one general feedback. So they would say, not, I looked at your submission and it's a good work, but I looked at 100 reports and these are my general impressions. Overall, most teams did a good job. Here are some of the common problems that I see. For example, this, and this is why it's a problem, and this is what can be done about it. And this is why it's a problem, and this is what could be done about this. Also, in those 100 reports that I reviewed, there were some interesting solutions. For example, here is an example of a very interesting way to present information. Or here is an interesting idea, and I really liked it, and this is why it's good, and I recommend that you do more of this. So this way, the coaches provide like maybe one page or maybe even several pages of feedback on the kind of sample of submissions. It probably will be useful and applicable for most teams because common mistakes tend to appear commonly, and so I guess everybody would benefit from it. And it will be much, much more detailed and much more educational for everyone. And also, it will not require that the coaches read every report and write on something on every report. They just, as I said, spend an hour looking through them and just getting a general impression, and then maybe another hour to, write up some feedback. And so I think in that case, it will be a little bit more manageable and a little bit more useful, and we can then, send it out to all teams instead of each team individually. The challenge again there becomes getting feedback from the coaches is relatively easy. Consolidating it and presenting it in a readable format, that's where we have a challenge. If we have 40 coaches, each one writes a couple of pages, how do you put it together? So some things are redundant, some things are repetitive, some things are not properly formatted. So even when we get the feedback from the coaches, it takes more time to put it all together. And so we never quite figured out how to do it. So we asked, in the past, I know I asked Tim to do it and Kim to do it, but realistically, it's a lot of work and we never were able to do it right. So I'm not sure if it should be also then maybe sent to head coaches and you each will consolidate maybe for one company or some other way. But ideally, we want to have that feedback. We want it to be sent out to coaches. I just never quite figured out how to manage it so it comes in time or on time. And I don't know if you have any ideas. I have one possible solution I'll share with you in a minute. But before I do, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
What if we had a group of aggregators for each specific company? That way we wouldn't have to rely so much on just a single person, but rather a group or a team, maybe head coaches, a group of head coaches undergo one company, and that company alone, so that there's more variation between the coaches. So it's not just one guy trying to aggregate everything together to compile it into one format. It's rather based on company.
And that could be a viable idea, especially given that we have more head coaches than we have companies. I'm trying to limit the number of companies to about 5-7 this semester. And in that case, we can even have, let's say, I don't know, 4 coaches assigned to each company and maybe 1 or 2 head coaches. And so that way we have more manpower. And maybe you can then agree, like it's a lot of work, but, I'll do it this week, you'll do it next week. So this way you don't have to spend all that time each week as long as you agree who does what. Or maybe we'll do it together every single week, but, so that's a possible solution. Any other thoughts on this? Because I think I may have another solution, and tell me if it's going to be, unreasonable, but I think it might work. Yes, Sushant?
Sir, I think what could be a good idea for feedbacks would be we could have an online Excel sheet. Like earlier, we used to have an Excel sheet was we'll have a tab on the bottom of all the companies. And then team-wise, there will be option. Then each coach, whichever team he has been assigned, he'll have to fill it out and email it. So what we could do is we'll have an Excel sheet, single Excel sheet, in which if we can, by some formula or something, by some way, we can put a method that each coach can only view the entries which he has put in. But it will get accumulated in one place and all the head coaches can have access to it. So that if they at some point or at any comment, they feel like it is not correct or it can be like better. So there can be a change made even before sending it. And 2 days before there can be a check also, like automatically team number will get marked red or something that this has not been filled yet and it is due for tomorrow. So, and reminder could be sent like that to the particular coach for it.
Good idea. The only thing that I can say here based on my experience is that Excel tends to be not very good when it comes to text. So Excel is excellent when you deal with numbers or maybe very, very short comments. With feedback, especially if I want a couple of pages, it becomes a little, it's not very suitable for formatting text. In many cases, when coaches will be providing feedback, maybe they want to take snapshots, like if they want to show some typical problems or excellent solutions. In many cases, it would be, useful to maybe take a picture and show, okay, this is what it looks like. That's what I'm talking about. And, don't do it or maybe do it. And so from this perspective, as I said, one of the big challenges I've had in the past was that I would get feedback either from coaches or even a summary from Tim or Kim. But in many cases, it's still a mess. In many cases, it's still not a nice, presentable document. And so, it seems to me that in order to make it readable, it has to be written in Word and then saved as PDF so that it's a nice, neat, document. It may be only a couple of pages, but it needs to be, nicely readable. And so that's when Excel becomes a little tricky because that Excel, you can put a lot of text in a cell, but it still becomes a little, not very easy to read, not very easy to process. So
maybe what we could do is in the section which I suggested, we would have the coaches write the comment. We could have links in that.
Yeah, that's another option. Yeah, links maybe.
Those links will lead to the Word files.
Yeah.
They'll be seen in a proper format.
Yeah, possibly. One idea that I have, and again, tell me if it's, pushing it to the point of sort of almost cheating, but I've read literally thousands of reports and weekly deliverables over these years. And the truth is that they're very, very similar, meaning that semester after semester, students write more or less the same things, make the same mistakes, present the same ideas. The companies may be changing, but the general kind of flow is the same. And so what I'm thinking is maybe we should take last semester's submissions and provide feedback on them. If we do it as a cohort, and if we say, okay, I read 100 submissions or documents, and these are my impressions, on chapter, let's say 2 marketing. Nobody says that it has to be from this semester. Maybe we can take it like literally now from the last semester, distribute it to the coaches for evaluation and feedback now, give them enough time. They will start working on that. Maybe then on Monday of the week when they have to provide the feedback, they can get a new batch from this semester and take a very quick look at that one just to see if there is anything new this time. And so if there is anything new, they can still add a few words. But other than that, they will have everything written up way, way, way in advance. And so this way, I don't think it will be any different because, as I said, unless it's a very new company, like we have a few companies that participate for the first time. But even there, I bet that other than the name of the company and the product, much of the problems, will be the same, like saying too much, saying too little, presenting it in a way that it's not readable, talking about things that are not even related to the question. I think even if the name of the company changes, the feedback will be roughly the same, or at least much of the comments will be the same. And so from that perspective, I thought we can literally assign it to the coaches to start providing feedback like now, like literally even during the theory phase, and then just have it ready like a week before we need it. Then on the week when we get this semester's submissions, we show them those latest submissions that just came in a few hours ago, ask them to take a quick look to see if anything needs additional comments, and if so, they may add a few sentences here and there. And then this way, if we distribute it to the coaches on Monday, they may have it back on Tuesday, and we can send it out on Wednesday. And this way, we'll have enough time to do it. We'll have enough time to structure it, to provide feedback on that. So as I said, the only challenge here is that it will be technically based on submissions from the last semester, but I don't think it will be distinguishable in terms of what kind of feedback we provide, other than maybe, as I said, some companies that we don't have submissions from the last semester because they participate the first time. So, but I don't know, do you think that might work, or would that be a possible way to handle it?
Yes, that sounds very nice and I'll say very smart.
So I don't know. Maybe we can try it that way and then see, unless it happens to be that this semester everything goes very differently. Maybe the coaches will do a better job and many mistakes will not be repeated anymore. So, but otherwise, I think it should be more or less doable. But anyway, keep that in mind. So we still have time to work out the differences here, and the process. Maybe we'll find a better way to do it. Another final thing is feedback that you guys receive. And so one idea that I had, and again, very open to other suggestions, is that I suggest that we do not necessarily weekly, but at least sometimes somewhat regular roundtable webinars among head coaches. And that's the time when you can share your experiences, you can share what you've done, you can get feedback from other coaches. Let's say Sushant here says, I had the situation, a coach, provided very poor feedback, I didn't know what to say, or this is what I told him, do you think that's good feedback? Maybe we can even share your feedback on feedback before the meeting, but then during the meeting you will provide sort of feedback on feedback on feedback. And so this way you will know how good is your feedback on the feedback provided by the coaches. And so during this either live session where everybody is around the kind of circle and just sharing experiences and commenting on them, or maybe even in some form of writing, I don't know, maybe you'll have access to what the other coaches, head coaches did. You review it, and in your weekly surveys, you provide some general feedback, which we can then circulate. But so as I said, I believe that we should have regular round tables, not only with coaches, but also with head coaches. Maybe, I don't know, half an hour or so, but just quick some review. Maybe not every week, maybe not, you don't have to attend all of them, but, at least reasonably frequently so that you have an opportunity to hear what other people are doing, share your own experience, and then share your thoughts and get some feedback. So, and also same thing here, webinars for the coaches. Again, just like the coaches will be required to do webinars where they can discuss all kinds of issues. They can do something as simple as, all right, so guys, I saw the deliverables this week. You saw my comments in writing, but let me talk about, my general impressions. And they do a webinar where they discuss, okay, we looked at the submissions. These are some of the things that we discussed, noticed. These are some of the tips, do's, don'ts, criticism, praise, all that stuff. or they can have a webinar on some conflicts that they had. So, okay, we discovered a few issues in teams like free riding. Let's do a webinar. We'll discuss, this issue and what can the team do. Likewise, maybe you can organize some webinars like that for the coaches. You can say, okay, we've been monitoring the work of the coaches, and so this is what we noticed. So most coaches do a good job, but here are some of the problems we see. Here is an interesting solution, or here is an interesting case. And again, it doesn't have to be, everyone does it every week. It can be maybe several head coaches do it, once in a while. And so this way it will be something that you organize and teach coaches, maybe even something that you help, can be shared with the students or even professors. Again, you kind of have this impartial, view and experience. Maybe you can even do a webinar like that for the professors. And but then, as I said, that's an opportunity for you also to sort of exchange ideas among the head coaches. So I don't know how many we should do of those, but I thought maybe, if you organize maybe 1 or 2 per semester, maybe done in groups, this way it should be not too much work, but it will be useful kind of platform for exchanging ideas. So what do you think?
Vas, the idea you had earlier about assigning the coaches to different head coaches, I think this webinar suggestion is a good mediary for that. So instead of the haphazard assignment, or for those who need help and so on, having the webinars, the coaches could actually bring their issues or their circumstances each week to the fore. And at that point, it's discussed among all the head coaches, but you still have your one assigned coach, and maybe, you didn't feel comfortable addressing it there, or you did, but you didn't get the answer you wanted, so you want to bring it. So
Yep.
the process.
Yep. The only thing I would say that, again, we don't have to limit those, like, let's say head coaches are organizing a webinar for the coaches where they discuss certain issues. I don't know, either issues or maybe provide some training, or maybe they feel that something needs to be discussed. I guess we don't even have to limit it to a subset of coaches, only people who are in sort of your team. We can invite everyone. So I'm not sure if everyone will show up, but, let's say you've noticed that, feedback that the coaches are providing is not very effective, and you want to, organize a webinar on how to provide effective feedback. Again, so it can be open to everyone, and people can attend and learn from that. And as I said,
it would be a medium for the coaches to also address the head coaches in
that's true.
Bigger bowl, as opposed to the other way down all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, 2 more things and we go home. 1, pet projects, same thing as portfolio, but so we allow coaches and head coaches, if you have any ideas that are bigger than just feedback and, case resolutions, if you wanted to try things, you're most welcome to try it. We'll give you the platform. And if it's something that is, very promising, maybe even find some money to sort of pay for it. Like, for example, one of the issues that I always wanted to do, we've been struggling with this with Tim for many years, the Association of X-Culture graduates. So every time we send out an invitation, a lot of people respond. So people want to have this alumni association, but we were never quite, able to find ways to keep those people engaged. So they apply, but what do you offer them? Like, what exactly would that association do? Would it be organizing some sort of like meetings with interesting people? Would it be something else? So again, if any of you have some ideas and maybe want to help us here, would be very nice. Maybe, again, some of you want to organize something like, maybe a series of talks with famous people. Again, if you want to try that, we'll provide you the platform, everything that needed. You can try that. Maybe somebody wants to start, like, I don't know, some sort of a business, or maybe, I don't know, maybe some sort of a project, and just never had an organization that will allow them to try it. Again, we encourage the coaches to give it a try, head coaches. And here, I'm not sure if we need to structure it much. So my logic was more, if someone has an idea, you tell us, and we'll decide, sort of kind of look at it on a case-by-case basis. We'll see what kind of resources are needed, where it leads, and then assemble a team, pull the resources, and let you do that. Again, not sure how much time we'll have for something like this, but if you ever wanted to do something like this, we obviously will support that. And so in this case, coaches can try, head coaches can supervise, or maybe it can be, a mix of coaches and head coaches working as partners. So know that this option is available, but at the same time, usually takes more time than just a semester. So as long as you're interested in this, talk to me, talk to Tim, talk to Kim, and we'll figure out a way to do it. And final last request that I have for you guys. The coaches will be in theoretical training for the next 4 weeks. And so that means that the early track students don't have anyone to help them during this transition period. In most cases, we don't expect many requests for help during the next 3 weeks because they're done with week 1 essentially. So the teams have been just formed. The next 2 weeks, they will be essentially just selecting the company and getting to know each other. So there will be nothing to ask feedback on, and there will be really no opportunities to have some sort of a conflict or a difficult situation. So, but there may be some teams that already have some ideas and want to get feedback, and there may be some teams that already have some conflicts or somebody's not participating. And so we don't really have coaches to assign, to those cases. And so what I thought in those cases, if it's okay with you, maybe we will be asking you, the head coaches, to take a look at those cases, if any come along in the next 3 weeks. And the reason here is twofold. On the one hand, we want the students to have some sort of coaching. And since we don't have anyone else, you're the only ones who can help here, it will be service to the students. At the same time, it would be a nice way to kind of test drive the system. So we've discussed how we want to process those cases, how we want to provide feedback, but at the same time, we want to make sure that everything works. And so what I thought was that if we want to give it a try and kind of test drive the system, make sure that everything works, and since you will be sort of overseeing the system once the coaches start working on that, it may be a good idea to give you each, I don't know, it will be probably no more than 1 case so far. But you will have the first-hand experience to go through this process, and maybe you'll discover that it's too slow, too long, too much information, too little information, not enough details in the email that assigns the case. And so my hope was that it would be an opportunity for you to also kind of try it as if you were a coach, and if something's not working, you can still have time to change it. You can tell us about the problem. We can together think about the better flow, so that when in 3 weeks the coaches start working on this, we already have everything kind of straightened out, ironed, and ready to go. And so I hope it's not too much to ask to maybe, as I said, handle a case or two during the next 3 weeks, if we have any. As I said, I'm not sure if there will be many. There may be some weekly comments. Maybe we will catch some problems there. There may be a couple of teams that will have a conflict, but it's only 1,000 people, only about 200 teams. And as I said, in the next 3 weeks, they will not start writing yet. So I don't think they will be asking for any feedback, possibly some conflicts or maybe coordination issues. So is that a reasonable request? All right, okay.
Yes.
All right, so I'm done. I don't know, Tim, do you have anything else to say, or anyone has any comments or questions or I don't know, concerns?
Well, you basically mentioned everything already. It was a whole story.
All right, okay, well then, so it's been a little longer than I expected, so I'll share this with the rest of the head coaches and Kim, and then, so let's see how it goes. And since somebody said that, oh, maybe we'll have the weekly surveys for the head coaches, and since I didn't send it to you earlier, I'll send you a link to one today. It will be just a couple of questions, and then we'll have one every week, as I said, more as a platform for you to share your comments without overloading our email boxes. But at the same time, if you have any concerns, feel free to contact me or Tim or Kim. And so we are still trying to divide up the workload between Kim and Tim, who does exactly what, but we should probably have that finalized also within the next day or two, and we'll know exactly whom to go to in each case. Like if it's a case report, we'll know who's going to be assigning them. If it's some sort of a portfolio issue, we'll know who will be assigning it. If it's some more of a strategic planning issue, we'll know who that is.
Vas, before you go, I know you gave us a summary before of all of what is required from the head coach, but based on this meeting, you've gone into a lot of questions in terms of should we do it this way or that. Can you give us a summary per se when you're doing the reporting of today's meeting, to just give us an outline of exactly what we've decided on and what you intend?
Yes. What I'll actually do with Tim and Kim, we have a document that lists everything that needs to be done day by day, essentially. And so there it says who does what and so on. And so what I'll do is I'll share that with you as well. And there is like a short summary and a longer summary. And so this way you will have the full picture. Maybe we'll even have a separate meeting about that just to make sure that everyone's okay with that. Or maybe I'll share that with you and ask for your input and then, make changes if needed so we don't waste everybody's time in a meeting. But yes, we'll definitely have some sort of like a final summary, job description, if you will, or maybe, workload distribution date by date so that everybody knows how the system works. So, all right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. Sorry it took a little longer. And yeah, let's see how this semester goes. Oh, and one more thing in the email that I will send to you, I will ask for your names, bios, and photos. Again, we want to create, some of you may already have it, but we'll update the information, your kind of employee profile page. So we want you to be on the website, both when the coaches and students working with you, they can look up and see who you are, but also if you ever will be applying for jobs, for example, during the semester. So this way you can say, I'm currently working as a head coach at XCulture. Here's my profile page, my email address at xculture.org. And so this way, so submit that within the next few days so we can add your profile pages to our website.
Can I just do a short question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I mean, if during this semester, because I also have a question from the students, so head coaches will be like being in the symposium as a coach or as ambassadors?
Leilani doesn't want to differentiate. So there will be only one cohort, and you can call them whichever, she calls it ambassadors, but technically they serve as coaches. And so the goal here is to have a group of people who will help. I think she likes the word ambassadors more, but my understanding is that pretty much all of them will be former coaches because you already have the experience, except for the local students. So we'll leave the selection of the local students up to the local professors. But those who are invited, I assume all of them will be from your cohort. Leilani may bring a student or so from her own school, maybe someone that she works with. Though to my knowledge, there is no one at that time. There were a couple of students, but both of them got jobs eventually, so they kind of dropped out, for normal natural reasons. But so my understanding is that it will be called ambassadors. The job will be administration and coaching. And as I said, I will be strongly advocating that those are the people from, who's gone through the process as students, as coaches, and as head coaches. And so again, not sure how many of you will be able to attend, schedule, work, all that stuff. But the plan is that you will, as before, you will arrive a few days early. The whole event is 6 days, so you'll arrive another 5-6 days early. You'll have a few days to prepare, to get to know each other, to get everything ready. Then the actual event. And so the plan is that there will be a compensation for that. So at the very least, we will pay for all your expenses and maybe some allowance for travel. So, so that's the plan at this time. We have, as of today, about 250 applicants, which honestly is not too many. I mean, even though we have room only for 150 people, but I know from those who apply, not everyone will be able to attend, even if we invited them. Somebody didn't realize that it costs money, and they, will not be able to pay. Others will have some emergencies at work, at home, and so ideally we want to have more like 500 people or so. So that, for those who cannot attend, drop out, we still have enough people, to work with. And so we still have a few days before the deadline, and usually most applications come at the end. But in Italy, for example, we had a problem that we didn't really have anyone from Europe. So we thought we will be closer to Europe, and so it will be more interesting for the Europeans, easier to attend. But what we got from the feedback was that the Europeans, they travel there all the time. I mean, Italy, big deal. I've been there like 10 times. And so we didn't have a single student from Europe in Italy. So we had somebody from the UK, I believe, and then a few ambassadors. But all the students came from the United States, from Africa, from Asia, from Latin America. And so, strangely enough, we didn't have any locals. Now with Canada, it's a little trickier because Calgary, to me personally, it's a very special location. That's where I did my PhD. That's where both of my kids were born. So that's Calgary is a very sentimental location for me. But for everybody else, first, not many people know and care much about Canada. It's a beautiful country, but many people don't know about it, or don't really think much about it. Second, Calgary is Western Canada, so it's like as far from everything else as it gets. So like if it was Toronto, then relatively close from Europe, just a few hour flight. But Calgary, that's like a whole continent away. And so from Asia, it may be still relatively easy to travel over the Pacific. But from Europe, that's a very, very long flight. And same thing from Latin America. It's, you have to go all the way across the North American continent. So we'll see how attractive this will be as a location. And if we have fewer people than we expect, in that case, maybe in the future, we'll just go either something very exotic like Grenada. People are interested in nice beaches and, the ocean, or alternatively just stick with the very large cities like Tokyo, like New York, that are easy to access and have enough appeal just because it's such a known big brand and big city. So, but for now we're trying Calgary, and as I said, it looks like we have more than enough people, but at the same time, I will not be surprised if some of those applications may not show up even if we invite them. So that's briefly the situation. So anyway, all right, let's then meet again sometime soon, and probably the future meetings will be scheduled by Tim, Kim, but I'll try to attend at least occasionally. So, all right, have a nice weekend, or the rest of the weekend for those of you in Asia.